In a world where pain often seems overwhelming, there's a powerful truth that many overlook. Our deepest struggles are not in vain. This story is about those chosen by God who have walked through fire, faced their darkest moments, and emerged not only stronger but as vessels of healing for others. If you've ever wondered why suffering exists or questioned your own purpose in the midst of trials, this message is for you. It's about turning your scars into strength and using your journey to help heal the world. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more inspiring stories like this. Now, let's begin. In a world where pain often seems overwhelming, there's a powerful truth that many overlook. Our deepest struggles are not in vain. This story is about those chosen by God who have walked through fire, faced their darkest moments, and emerged not only stronger but as vessels of healing for others. If you've ever wondered why suffering exists or questioned your own purpose in the midst of trials, this message is for you. It's about turning your scars into strength and using your journey to help heal the world. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more inspiring stories like this. Now, let's begin. As we continue on this journey together, let's take a moment to think about the most difficult moments in your life. What are the wounds you carry, the scars that have shaped you? These marks, both seen and unseen, may seem like symbols of weakness, reminders of pain, but I want to share a powerful truth with you today. Your scars are not your story's end, but the beginning of something even greater. In the book of Isaiah, God speaks of a mission, one He calls His people to fulfill. "The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound." Isaiah 61:1. You see, the mission is clear. God's chosen ones, the ones who have walked through the fire, are uniquely positioned to heal, to restore, and to give hope to those who are hurting. But this calling doesn't come from a place of perfection. It comes from a place of brokenness. Think about the people in your life, or perhaps even think about your own experience, the pain that seemed too heavy to bear. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one, a shattered relationship, or a dream that was never realized. In those moments, did you feel as though your world was collapsing? Did you wonder if you would ever find peace again? The answer is yes. You will. Not because life will always be easy, but because in your deepest pain, you are being prepared for a higher calling. God uses our scars to connect us to others, to show them that healing is possible, even in the darkest of times. Consider a mother who has lost a child. The pain of that loss is unimaginable, yet her grief becomes a wellspring of compassion. She becomes a source of strength for others who are grieving, a beacon of light in their dark hour. Or think of someone who battled addiction, someone who felt as though they were drowning in their struggles. And yet, after years of suffering, they emerged victorious, using their story to lead others out of the very darkness they once lived in. These are the chosen ones, the ones who, through the refining process of suffering, have become vessels of healing. It's not that they never felt anger, confusion, or doubt. It's that they allowed those feelings to shape them, not destroy them. They allowed their pain to be the fire that purified their faith, refining their character and preparing them to serve others. "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him," Job declared in Job 13:15. Job understood that suffering wasn't a sign of God's abandonment, but a divine opportunity for transformation. As you reflect on your own pain, know that it is not wasted. Your scars are the very thing that will give you the authority to speak life into others. You may feel unqualified, thinking, "I'm still broken. How could I help someone else?" But here's the truth. Your brokenness is exactly what qualifies you. Your scars are not evidence of your defeat. They are proof of God's redemption, a testimony that His grace is sufficient even in the most difficult times. When we look at the lives of those who have overcome, we often see only the triumph. We see the victory, the joy, the healing, but we must remember that every victory was preceded by a battle. The scars we carry are a testament to the battles we've fought and the strength we've gained through them. Just as gold is purified in fire, we, too, are refined through our struggles. You may not see it now, but God is using every painful moment to shape you into someone who can comfort and restore others. As you step forward, ready to embrace your role as a healer, remember that it's not about perfection. It's about willingness. God is asking you to share your story, to let your scars become the means through which others are healed. When you do, you'll discover that your greatest ministry is not found in your perfection, but in your brokenness, your willingness to say, "I understand, and I am here to walk with you." Have you ever felt that tug in your heart, that whisper from deep within, telling you that there is more to your life than what you see in front of you? Have you ever wondered, as you sit in your darkest moment, if perhaps, just perhaps, there's a higher purpose to the pain you're enduring? In those moments of weakness when everything seems to be falling apart, God is not absent. In fact, it is in those very moments that He is preparing you for something far greater. I want you to stop for a moment and reflect on the battles you've faced, the struggles that have shaken you to your core, the losses, the betrayals, the disappointments. Maybe you found yourself on your knees praying, "God, take this away from me, I can't bear it anymore." I know that prayer because I've said it myself. Yet, just like the Apostle Paul, who pleaded with God to remove his affliction, God's response was clear. "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. God's response wasn't to take away Paul's suffering, but to provide him with the strength to endure it. And through that very weakness, God's power was revealed. It's hard to understand this in the moment, isn't it? When you're facing the weight of the world, it seems impossible that anything good could come from it. Yet, in the process of enduring, something incredible happens. Our brokenness becomes the fertile soil for God's greatest work. The divine calling that we often speak of is not a calling to comfort and ease. It's a calling to rise up in the midst of pain, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to let God use our scars to heal the world. You see, this calling isn't for those who have it all together. It's not for the perfect, the flawless, or the untouchable. It's for those who have walked through the fire and emerged with a heart full of grace, a soul that understands the depth of pain and the beauty of healing. Consider the story of Joseph. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned for years, Joseph could have easily given up. He could have allowed his pain to harden his heart and his bitterness to consume him. But instead, he remained faithful, knowing that his suffering had a purpose. When the time came, Joseph stood before his brothers and said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. Joseph's suffering wasn't just for him. It was part of God's plan to bring salvation to many. Your story, just like Joseph's, is not about the pain you've endured, but about how God is using that pain to shape you for His greater purpose. There are people in your life, and perhaps even people you've yet to meet, who need to hear your story. They need to know that healing is possible. They need to see that despite the darkness, there is always light. Your scars, your wounds, your journey, they are not for nothing. They are the very tools God will use to bring hope and restoration to those who need it most. I know it's hard to see this in the midst of your struggle. It's easy to feel unqualified, unworthy, and insignificant. But I want to tell you today that you are being prepared for something magnificent. Your brokenness does not disqualify you. It qualifies you. It gives you the authority to speak into the lives of others, to offer comfort and healing, because you've been there. You understand the pain, and you know the way out. It's time to embrace your calling, not because you're perfect, but because you are willing. God is asking you to step forward, to rise above your pain and become the vessel of healing He has designed you to be. Just as Christ was made perfect through His suffering, so too will your suffering refine you, shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. There are moments in life when the weight of the world feels unbearable, when it seems like every step forward is met with a step backward. It is in these moments that our faith is truly tested. We ask ourselves, "Why me, Lord? Why is this happening? Where are you when I need you the most?" If you've ever found yourself questioning the goodness of God in the face of suffering, I want you to know you are not alone. It is a question that many of the greatest figures of our faith have asked, and it's one that has echoed through the ages. In the Gospel of Matthew, we find a poignant moment in Jesus' life where He, too, questions the silence of God in the midst of His agony. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. Even Jesus, the Son of God, in His most profound moment of suffering, felt the sting of abandonment. He knew that this was part of the divine plan, yet in His humanity, He cried out. This moment is crucial for us because it reminds us that questioning, doubting, and even feeling abandoned in our pain does not make us weak or unfaithful. It makes us human. You may have been through seasons of doubt, times when you wondered if God had forgotten you. Maybe you prayed for a miracle that never came, or you waited for deliverance that seemed to never arrive. It's easy to become disillusioned in those moments. The world often tells us that if we do everything right, if we pray enough, if we live faithfully, then we will be protected from suffering. But life teaches us something different. Suffering is part of the journey. It's not a punishment, it's a refinement. In these moments of crisis, when our faith feels fragile, we often experience what feels like a spiritual famine. We long for answers, for a sign, for reassurance that we're not walking this path alone. The silence of God in these moments can feel deafening. Yet, just as Job found in the depths of his suffering, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Job 13:15, we too must find the courage to trust, even when the answers don't come. Job's faith was not without struggle, but in the midst of his turmoil he chose trust over bitterness. What if, instead of seeing suffering as a roadblock, we viewed it as a means to deepen our relationship with God? What if, in our darkest moments, we could hear His voice louder than the pain itself? This is the beauty of faith. It's not about never doubting or never feeling lost. Faith is about choosing to trust even when the path forward is unclear, when our prayers feel unanswered, and when God feels distant. It's in these moments that we learn the true nature of God's love. His love doesn't come in the form of avoiding our pain. It comes in the form of His presence in the middle of it. God's grace isn't about preventing hardship. It's about giving us the strength to endure it, to grow through it, and to become the people He has always called us to be. The Apostle Paul experienced this firsthand when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.'" It was in his weakness that Paul found God's power to heal, to restore, and to transform. Maybe you're in the midst of your own crisis of faith right now. Maybe you're tired and you feel as though you've been holding on by a thread. I want to encourage you to hold on just a little longer. The darkness will not last forever. God is working, even when you can't see it. He is refining you, preparing you for a purpose greater than you can understand right now. Just like a diamond is formed under pressure, your faith is being shaped in the fire of your struggles. And remember this, your crisis of faith is not the end of your story. It's a chapter in a much larger narrative, a narrative where you will emerge stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate than before. Just as Christ rose from the dead after His darkest hour, you, too, will rise. The pain you're experiencing now will eventually be transformed into strength, and your faith, tested and tried, will emerge as a testimony to the world of God's enduring faithfulness. Where are you watching from? share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more stories of hope and strength. Together, let's continue this journey of restoration, trusting that God's plan is unfolding even in our pain. Life is a refining fire, a crucible where the dross is separated from the pure gold. If you've ever found yourself standing at the edge of your own strength, looking into the overwhelming abyss of your trials, you might wonder how anything good could possibly come from the pain you're experiencing. But let me tell you, it is in those very moments, when you feel as though you have nothing left, that you are being shaped into something more than you can imagine. Think about a piece of raw gold. It is rough and unrefined, but when placed in the fire, it is tested, purified, and made into something precious. So it is with our faith. The Apostle Peter writes in 1 Peter 1:7, "These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." Our faith, like gold, must be refined in the furnace of suffering in order to shine with the brilliance that God intends. In your pain, in your struggles, you may feel like you're being destroyed, but what if this is exactly where God is shaping you into the person you were always meant to be? There's a profound truth in the struggle. The very things that seem to break us, the hardships that threaten to overwhelm us, are the tools God uses to strengthen us. It's hard to see this when we're in the thick of it, but the promise is clear. Through the fire, we emerge stronger. Think about someone who has experienced a devastating loss. At first, it feels like the end, like the pain will consume them. Yet, over time, something incredible happens. They begin to heal. The wound, though it may never fully disappear, transforms them. They become more compassionate, more empathetic. They begin to see the world through a different lens, and that perspective becomes a gift they can share with others. Their scars no longer define them as broken. Instead, their scars are proof of the strength they've gained through the fire. In the same way, God is using your pain, your struggle, to prepare you for something greater. It is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter, one in which your wounds become a source of healing for others. As the Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 1:4, "He comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." Your pain has purpose. It's not for nothing. You are being prepared to help others who are walking the same painful path. Just as you have found comfort in the Lord, you will become a vessel of that same comfort for others. I know it's hard to believe when you're in the midst of the struggle. When your heart is heavy and your spirit is weary, the idea of finding strength can seem like a distant dream. But hold on. God has not forgotten you. He is using this time, this very trial, to prepare you for something beyond your comprehension. There is a purpose in your pain, and you are being shaped into a vessel that will carry God's healing power to others. I think about the story of Job, his losses, his suffering, his broken heart. Yet, through it all, Job declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Job 13:15. Job's faith wasn't about the absence of pain. It was about the presence of trust in God, even in the darkest times. It was in his deepest suffering that God revealed his greatest glory. Job's story reminds us that, just like gold in a furnace, we are being refined in ways that only God can fully understand. We might not see the full picture now, but one day we will. And perhaps, just like Job, the time will come when you can look back and say, "I was refined in the fire, and I am stronger for it." But it's not just about personal strength. It's about being able to help others who are walking through their own fire, who are in the depths of their pain, just as you once were. Your healing, your strength, will become the beacon that guides others out of their darkness. When life shakes us to our core and we feel like we've lost everything that gave us stability, we often ask, "Why is this happening to me? Why does God allow this pain?" It's natural to question, to wonder if there's any purpose in the midst of our suffering. But what if, instead of focusing on the pain itself, we shifted our perspective to see the purpose that God has woven into our struggles? What if, just what if, our pain isn't a random act of misfortune, but a divine tool for transformation? In the book of Romans, Paul writes, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Romans 5:3-4. Suffering in God's hands is never wasted. It is not just something to endure, but something to be used for a greater purpose. Each trial, each heartbreak, is an opportunity for God to refine us, to strengthen our faith, and to prepare us for the calling He has set before us. It's difficult to see this when we're in the thick of our suffering. Pain has a way of clouding our vision, making it hard to see beyond the tears and the heartache. But the truth is, God is always at work, even when we don't feel it. It's in our moments of greatest vulnerability, when we feel weakest, that He is most present, molding us, shaping us into the person we were always meant to be. There's a powerful example of this in the life of Joseph. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, and thrown into prison for years, Joseph could have given up. He could have let his suffering turn him bitter and resentful. But instead, he trusted that God had a plan for him. In Genesis 50:20, after being reunited with his brothers who had wronged him, Joseph says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph's suffering wasn't meaningless. It was part of God's divine plan to save nations and to fulfill the purpose God had prepared for him. Just as Joseph's pain had a greater purpose, so too does yours. Maybe you're in a season of waiting, wondering how you'll ever get through this struggle, but God is working in ways you can't yet see. Your heartache is not in vain. Your perseverance through each trial is producing something powerful. God doesn't waste a single tear. He uses every moment of pain, every heartbreak to create in you a character that reflects His glory. Let's be real for a moment. The path to purpose isn't easy. It's not about walking a straight, smooth road. It's about navigating through valleys and climbing mountains, all the while trusting that God is there every step of the way. Sometimes it's not until we look back that we can see the work God has done in us, how far we've come, and the strength we've gained in the process. But there's something else that happens as we endure our struggles. We become instruments of hope for others. The very pain that threatens to break us becomes the source of healing for others. Just as God comforted us in our troubles, we are called to comfort others. He comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. 2 Corinthians 1:4. Your scars, your story, your journey, they are not for you alone. They are the very tools that God will use to reach others who are hurting, lost, and desperate for hope. In the midst of your pain, you may not see the bigger picture. You may not understand why this is happening or how you will ever get through it. But know this: your pain has purpose. It's shaping you, refining you, and preparing you to be a vessel of healing to others. Your story, though difficult, will one day be the light that guides someone else out of their darkness. And as you walk through the storm, remember that you are not alone. God is with you, holding you and guiding you through each and every step. He sees your pain, He hears your cries, and He will never leave you. Trust that He is working all things together for your good, and that in time, your pain will give birth to purpose. As we walk through life's storms, there's one thing we learn. The deepest wounds are not the ones that remain hidden beneath the surface. They are the ones that expose us to others in vulnerable, raw ways. In our moments of pain, it's easy to isolate ourselves, to think that our suffering is unique, that no one could possibly understand what we're going through. But the truth is, your pain, though deeply personal, connects you to the world in ways that few other experiences can. Have you ever met someone who seemed to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders? Maybe they've been through heartache or loss, and as they spoke, you felt something stir within you. A recognition, a deep knowing that you've walked a similar road. There is something powerful about meeting someone who understands. Not just someone who sympathizes, but someone who truly empathizes. Someone who has stood in your shoes, someone who has felt that same heartbreak, and someone who can offer you hope because they've come out the other side. This is the kind of healing that we are called to bring into the world. As much as we long for God to heal us, we are also called to be vessels of healing for others. The Apostle Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 1:3-4, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." In our struggles, God's comfort becomes our strength, and that very comfort equips us to comfort others. Think about that for a moment. The very pain you've endured, the hardships that have almost broken you, are the tools that God will use to bring healing to others. Your scars are not a sign of defeat. They are a testimony of God's grace, of how He has walked with you through the fire, how He has refined you, and how He has made you stronger. Those very scars are the gateway through which you will help someone else who is walking through their own darkness. Empathy is born out of experience. It's not something we can learn from a textbook or memorize from a sermon. True empathy comes from walking through our own valleys of suffering and emerging with a heart full of compassion for others. It's the ability to sit with someone in their pain and say, "I know how you feel. I've been there, and you're not alone." And when we offer that empathy, we do more than just offer words of comfort. We offer a lifeline. We offer the hope that someone else's story doesn't have to end in despair. We offer the power of our testimony, the proof that healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. There's nothing more powerful than a wounded healer, someone who has walked through the depths of their own suffering and now reaches out to lift others up. Take a moment and think about someone in your life who has been there for you in your own moments of need. Maybe it was a friend, a mentor, or even a stranger who simply offered a kind word when you felt like giving up. Their empathy changed the course of your journey, didn't it? It made you believe that healing was possible, that you could rise above your circumstances. And now, it's your turn. Your journey of healing is not just for you. It's for everyone whose path you cross. God doesn't waste anything, not a single tear, not a single trial. He uses everything to shape us into the people He's called us to be. And in our moments of vulnerability, we become the most powerful instruments of healing because we understand. We have felt that sting of loss, that crushing weight of disappointment, and now we are the hands and feet of God, bringing comfort to the brokenhearted. I know it's easy to look at your scars and feel like you are defined by your pain, but I want to tell you something. Your pain is not your identity. Your identity is in Christ, and it is through your scars, through your journey of healing, that God will use you to bring light to others. You are not broken, you are beautifully redeemed. There's a powerful, life-changing truth that we often overlook in the midst of our struggles. God doesn't just fix things, He redeems them. Redemption is not about erasing the past, it's about transforming it. It's about taking the broken pieces of our lives and, through His grace, making something beautiful from them. When we experience true redemption, we no longer see our pain as something to be ashamed of, but as something that has been used to shape us, refine us, and make us who we are today. It's easy to feel as though our past mistakes, our failures, and our wounds define us. We may look at our scars, whether they are physical or emotional, and feel that they are permanent marks of defeat. But God is in the business of turning ashes into beauty. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 61:3 to provide for those who grieve, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. What a beautiful promise. God does not just make us whole again, He makes us more than we were before. He takes what the enemy meant for harm and turns it into something that reflects His glory. Take a moment and think about the people in the Bible who experienced redemption. Look at Saul, who became Paul, a man who persecuted Christians with zeal, but who was radically transformed by God's grace. His past was filled with regret and shame, but God redeemed him and used him to bring the gospel to the world. Paul became one of the greatest advocates for Christ, and his letters continue to inspire believers today. His life is a testament to the power of God's grace to transform and redeem anyone, no matter how far they have fallen. Similarly, think of the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15. The son, lost in his own desires and rebellion, ended up destitute and broken. But when he returned home, the father didn't greet him with anger or rejection. He embraced him, saying, "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Luke 15:24. That's redemption. The father didn't just forgive his son, he welcomed him back with open arms and a heart full of love. The son's journey had taken him through pain and shame, but his return was marked by a celebration, a transformation, a redemption. This is the heart of the gospel. Our past, with all its mistakes and brokenness, does not have to define our future. Our story is not over. It's just beginning. Redemption is not just about what God can do for us, but what He does through us. When we allow God to redeem our pain, He doesn't just heal us, He equips us to help others. Our scars become a testimony of His grace. They become proof that no one is too broken to be used by God. I understand that it can be hard to believe in redemption when you're in the midst of your darkest moment. When the weight of your failures, mistakes, and regrets feels too heavy to carry, it may seem impossible that anything good could come from it. But remember, God works in the impossible. He takes what seems irreparable and breathes new life into it. Consider the life of someone you know, or perhaps your own life, where the journey of healing has seemed endless. Yet, over time, as God's grace works in the deepest parts of our hearts, we begin to see the purpose in our pain. The things that once seemed like irreparable mistakes begin to look like opportunities for God to shine His light. Just as a potter molds clay into something beautiful, God is shaping our lives into something extraordinary. The cracks in the clay are not flaws. They are where the light shines through. Redemption is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time event. It's a continual work of grace in our lives. We are all works in progress, and with each step we take in faith, we move closer to the person God has created us to be. Our pain, our struggles, our mistakes, they do not disqualify us. They are what qualify us to step into the calling God has for us. He is using everything, every trial, every heartbreak, every moment of despair, to bring us closer to His heart and to the work He wants to do in and through us. If you are in a place right now where you feel like you've lost everything, where you don't see the way forward, I encourage you to hold on. Redemption is coming. God is already at work even in your darkest moments, and He is using your journey to shape you for something greater than you could imagine. At this point in the journey, you might be wondering, how can I possibly walk in purpose when everything feels so broken? How can I find meaning in the midst of my pain, when it feels like it's consuming me? These are the questions we often ask when we're facing the hardest parts of our lives. And it's in these moments, when we feel the most lost, that God begins to reveal the truth. There is purpose in the pain. It's difficult to see it in the midst of our struggles, but God does not waste our suffering. Every tear, every hardship, every painful step we take has a divine purpose. Just as a sculptor shapes a beautiful statue from a rough block of marble, God is shaping us through our trials. He is molding us into the people He created us to be, people who will carry His light and love to others in ways we never imagined possible. The Bible tells us in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." This verse is often quoted, but it holds such profound meaning. God is working, even in the darkest seasons of our lives, for a greater good. It might not be easy to see in the moment, but the pain you are walking through is not without reason. You are being prepared for something greater. I want to share a story with you about someone who walked through unimaginable pain, yet found purpose in the process. Look at the life of Jesus. His suffering on the cross was not just the pain of the nails and the crown of thorns, it was the weight of the world's sin, the weight of every broken heart, every betrayal, every failure, every tear. And yet, through that excruciating pain, he fulfilled the greatest purpose of all. He made a way for humanity to be reconciled to God. His pain was not the end, it was the beginning of redemption. Your pain, too, is not the end of your story. It may feel like it sometimes, but God is using it to bring about something far greater than you can understand right now. Just like the life of Christ, your pain can become the very tool that brings healing, hope, and restoration to others. It's through your brokenness that God will shine His brightest. Think about it. How can you truly help someone who is suffering unless you've walked through suffering yourself? How can you offer true compassion if you've never known what it feels like to be broken? Your pain, as hard as it is to accept, gives you the ability to speak into the lives of others in ways that no one else can. It gives you a heart that understands, a heart that is tender and full of grace. This is the beautiful truth. Our pain is not wasted. It's the very thing that equips us to live out our purpose. God is not calling you to walk a life free from struggle. He's calling you to walk through the pain, knowing that He is with you every step of the way, refining you and preparing you for what He has ahead. You may not see it now, but the road you are walking is leading you to a place of purpose. Every trial you face is making you stronger, more compassionate, more able to step into the calling God has placed on your life. Your scars are not just reminders of what you've endured. They are the marks of a warrior, a healer, someone who has been tested and proven. And these scars will become the testimony that leads others out of their darkness and into the light. Take a moment and think of someone you know who has walked through immense pain and yet continues to shine. Perhaps it's someone who lost a loved one but still gives love to others. Someone who overcame addiction and now helps others find freedom. These are the stories of people who have found purpose in their pain, people who have allowed God to use their struggles for something greater. The pain you're experiencing right now, though overwhelming and all-consuming, has a purpose. God is not leaving you in this place to suffer aimlessly. He is using it to prepare you, to refine you, and to equip you for the greater calling He has placed on your life. And one day, you will look back and see how every moment of suffering was worth it, how God was at work in the depths of your pain, shaping you into someone who can bring healing to the world. As we come to the final chapter of this journey together, I want to leave you with this thought. Your story is not just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's about stepping into the life that God has designed specifically for you. A life where your scars are transformed into sources of strength, where your pain becomes the platform from which you offer healing and hope to the world. I know that the road has been long, and at times it's felt like the struggle would never end. There were moments when you doubted yourself, when you questioned God's plan, when the weight of your circumstances made it hard to breathe. Yet, here you are, still standing. And more than that, you are emerging from the fire, stronger, wiser, and more equipped to walk in your divine purpose than ever before. God has not called you to walk this path in isolation. You are surrounded by a community of believers, each on their own journey of healing and transformation. And together, we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. The Apostle Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians 12:27, "Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it." Every part of the body has a unique role to play, and your role, your purpose, is integral to the kingdom of God. But it's not always easy to embrace this calling. There are still days when the past seems to haunt you, When the scars of yesterday feel too fresh, too raw, and in those moments it's tempting to retreat, to shy away from the purpose God has placed within you. But I want to challenge you today. Step forward in faith. You are not defined by your failures, your mistakes, or your pain. You are defined by the grace of God that is working in you and through you. But He said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." 2 Corinthians 12:9. Your weaknesses, your struggles, these are not signs of defeat. They are opportunities for God's power to be made perfect in you. As you step into your divine calling, remember that you are not alone. God is with you, and He has equipped you for every good work He has prepared for you. You have a story to tell, a testimony that will bring healing to others. Your pain is not the end of your journey. It is the very beginning of something beautiful. A beautiful work of redemption that only God can accomplish. Think about the people you can touch with your story. The ones who feel lost in their own darkness. The ones who are desperate for hope. The ones who are wondering if they'll ever see the light again. You are the answer to their prayer. Your journey, your scars, your healing. These are the tools God will use to bring light to the darkest corners of this world. There will be challenges ahead. There will be days when you doubt, when the enemy tries to convince you that you're not enough. But remember that you are more than enough. You are more than a conqueror through Christ who strengthens you. Romans 8:37. Your purpose is clear, and it is waiting for you to step into it. I want to leave you with one final thought. God is not finished with you yet. No matter where you are on your journey, no matter how deep the pain or how great the struggle, God is still at work. He is still writing your story, and the best chapters are yet to come. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more stories of hope, healing, and divine purpose. Step into your calling. Step into your destiny. God is with you, and the world is waiting for your light. Remember, the pain you've endured is not in vain. It has shaped you. It has prepared you. And now, God is calling you to use it to heal others and to change the world. Step forward in faith and embrace your divine calling, for your story is just beginning.